everyone, Jennifer here. I'm just popping into the very beginning again to ask you to please rate and review this show on any podcast platform that allows it, especially Apple Podcasts, because that really helps the show find new listeners. Okay, here we go.
Right. Well, and also, two of his brothers had passed away within the year as well. And so I think we all kind of were, a little bit in denial about what was going on. Like, here we are losing our fourth person, in a year and a half. And so, he had so many things working against him. And then the grief and the fear, I can't imagine, about, just how his body was just not prepared to fight at all.
There was the last normal day, the last day that things were the way they were before they weren't anymore.
We kind of all rushed out of the house and said a quick goodbye. And, little did I know that would be the last time I hugged my mom.
He yells and tells me he's getting ready to go. He said, "I'm okay. Just stay here. I'll be home in a few hours." We tell him bye and he leaves. That was the last time we ever saw him.
It's like the minute that helicopter hit the air, it just hit me what I was watching, because I knew he wasn't coming home and he knew he wasn't coming home.
For me, I took it more personally because I'm a nurse practitioner, and why can't I save him? I can help all these other people, and why can't I save him?
They're telling us that it was time, we needed to make a decision, we need to go ahead and just take him off the ventilator. And I was like, how do we know?
One thing I like to tell people is that if you lose somebody to COVID, your need to talk about the person you lost will outlast other people's desire to hear about it.
We make sure that our family members and loved ones' memories lived on. That's really important to me, is that people don't forget. I don't want to forget any of it.
So talk about them. Talk about them till people are sick of hearing about them. Because as long as you're still talking about them, they're never far away.
And the last thing that my mom said is, she said, when you get to heaven, we will look for each other.
Hello everyone, you're listening to For Those We Lost. I'm your host, Jennifer Sullivan. Thank you for being here. If you've lost a loved one to COVID and would like to share your story on the show, please send me an email. My email address is forthosewelostpodcast@gmail.com, or go to the website forthosewelostpodcast.com and click on the contact button, and you can reach me that way as well. Also, if you'd like to help support the show, you can do that at buymeacoffee.com/forthosewelost. The link is in the show notes. Okay, let's get started with this episode. Today I'll be talking to Casey in Kansas. Casey lost her husband David to COVID on December 26th, 2021. David left behind not only his wife, but their 6 children. In this episode, Casey talks about her strong intuitive sense that something would happen to Dave, and she talks about how she and her kids are coping. For context, we recorded this episode on September 7th, 2022. Casey is a documenter, and as she describes it, she has mountains of videos, messages, and photos of her family that she saves. When the memories come up on Facebook, she screen captures, message threads, and reshares. If you want to get a sense of what they went through when Dave was in the hospital, please go look through Casey's Instagram. That link is in the show notes. We also mentioned the podcast Terrible, thanks for asking. That link is also in the show notes. And with that, I'd like to welcome Casey to the show. Thank you for being here.
Yes, of course. I'm happy to be here. Well, kind of.
Yeah, it's one of those things, huh? It's nice to talk about, but also sad that this podcast even exists.
Right. Exactly.
And today we're talking about your husband, David.
Yes.
And you live in Kansas?
I do, yes.
Okay. And your husband passed away on December 26th, 2021.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So you are still in that first year of life without him.
Yeah, it's been just over 8 months.
Well, why don't we start with March of 2020, which is where I like to start a lot of the shows, and just talk for a little bit, because I know you have 6 kids, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about March of 2020, the changes your family made, and how it affected you, like work-wise and kid-wise and school-wise.
Okay. Well, to be honest, nothing really changed for us. At all, really. We're like you said, we have had 6 kids. We're a homeschooling family, so we were already homeschooling.
Oh, wow.
So we did not have any changes as far as school went. I am a stay-at-home mom, so I didn't have any work issues. My husband worked for the government, and they really the only changes they made, were like masking and temperature changes or checking and things like that. So yeah, we really didn't feel much of the impact of the pandemic at first. What really hit us was when the businesses started really shutting down, and it really became more of like an anxiety issue for all of us, more than like being burdened by the way society was changing. Like wearing masks was hard for us. There's just a little bit of like trauma that goes along with that I already had. So, those were just the kinds of things that changed for us, was, the stores not being open late anymore and things like that. So,
yeah. Did your kids do any community activities or any kind of shared homeschool activities that got changed?
Yeah, they did. There were some local little clubs that they were a part of, and things that changed to more like of an online, kind of an online playing format versus in person. So that was a little bit, different for them, but we mostly spent time at home anyway. So
yeah.
And
your husband worked for the government, so then he just came home and worked from home.
He actually never even had to do that. He worked at a mail-out pharmacy, and he was kind of in the offices anyway, and so he didn't really work in the public. So they didn't really take any time off. It was more like just if you're sick, don't come in type of thing. It just wasn't anything that he had to. Even that wasn't different for us. He was not working at home. So.
And did they do regular testing, or like temperature checks and things where he worked? So you felt like, okay, he's going there and people there are safe. So when he's coming home, it's safe at home.
Yeah. Yeah. And he wore his mask, regularly. When, one of us needed to go out, it was mostly him who went out to do the shopping and things like that. So just to, minimize our exposure and things. So yeah, but he was really good about wearing his mask and everything.
Yeah, and you guys went, goodness, like 18 months practically or more into the pandemic with
with very little change.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then on Thanksgiving in 2021, his dad died, and he was in the hospital, and I'm pretty sure that's where David got COVID. So, yeah, he got sick, or I think he was exposed to COVID on November 25th, and then he was dead on December 26th.
Oh. So yeah, if you don't mind, go into, as much as you feel comfortable with and as much detail as you want about what happened. So his dad died on Thanksgiving. My goodness, you guys are going to have some holidays coming up, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty nervous about that. I'm nervous that it's September, and I'm be even more nervous for October. And yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I mean he was sick, and I was sick as well, and our oldest daughter was sick. A couple other family members were sick. And it honestly, we were so like, distracted by Dad's death that it never occurred to us what was going on. I'm kind of a natural health person, and so I immediately had on board, my fire water, my herbs, my all the things that I do, and I was, trying to get him to do the same thing, and my daughter too, and then other family members. I was like making things for them, and I look back now and I feel so much guilt because I feel like I focused on myself and everyone else who wasn't as sick, more than him who needed it the most. But I have to remind myself that, he was typical stubborn husband who was like, what? I'm not drinking this crap, And so it was not entirely my fault that he wasn't, doing the things. But those little bits of guilt still get me sometimes.
Yeah, husbands can be very stoic, and they
Yeah.
want to be strong for their family
Right.
and not let people know how bad they're actually doing. And he
Right.
was probably also deeply grieving for his dad.
Right. Well, and also, two of his brothers had passed away within the year as well. And so I think we all kind of were, a little bit in denial about what was going on. Like, here we are losing our fourth person,
Yeah.
in a year and a half. And so, I mean, Dave's he had so many things working against him. I mean, his health wasn't the greatest, and he had breathing problems, sleep apnea and stuff, and then the grief and the fear. I can't imagine, about, just how his body was just not prepared to fight at all.
Yeah. When you look back now, do you think that perhaps he was so deeply in his own grief fog that he just wasn't paying attention to what was going on with him?
Yeah, I do. I think so. We went a full week, I guess a week and a half or so, of me taking care of him and things like that. And then just overnight, it was just his oxygen, it just went boom. Like it just was at 77 when we woke up that Tuesday morning. And I was like, okay, what hospital do we go to? Like here it is. And I don't know, Jennifer, if it's even hit me yet what has happened. It definitely doesn't feel like it's real. But yeah.
So he went into the ER, or did he just go to the hospital and was admitted straight away?
Well, we went to a hospital, a local hospital here, and they gave him a dose of some kind of cough medicine to help him go to sleep, and some Benadryl, and sent him home. He went to the ER. I forget what day that was, but then a few days later, he was not better. And so that's when his oxygen really went down. So I took him to another hospital and dropped him off at the emergency room, and I went to Park, and they never let me go back in. So that's where he stayed.
Oh.
Yeah.
So even So even in 2021, at the end of 2021, that hospital did not let you go in and have any visitation with him.
No, not until the day he died.
Oh. So, yeah, if you don't mind, just go into what those days were like and what happened and how much you heard from the hospital and the nurses and things.
I was hearing from them at least once a day. I should say just once a day. There was no more than once a day. I would hear from them once a day, Monday through Friday. When we hit Saturday and Sunday, man, that's when I don't know, how the shift changes work. I don't know what's different at the hospitals about Saturday and Sunday or whatever, but those were the scariest days because it would be noon before I knew if he was even alive. And that was if he messaged me on Facebook Messenger is how we were talking until he was put on the ventilator. There was just a lot. I mean, there were so many, like they'd use big words and I'm like, wait, what does that mean? Can you spell that so I can look it up later? Which, always leads to more questions. So it's like, how beneficial is that really, I don't know. There were a lot of things that I didn't like that they were doing to him. I didn't want them to do. I didn't feel like I had a choice, and not being there was so hard.
Yeah, he had no loved one there to advocate for him, and he was already so sick.
Right. And, I tried calling like the hospital advocates and they gave me false hope. They were like, we'll take an iPad up there so that he can video chat with the kids, things like that. And those things never happened. I was so relieved to get on the phone with those people, and then those things never happened. And and then they acted like they were just so busy. And then when we got up to the ICU floor, the day he died, there were like 3 other patients, and I'm just like, was just floored, and that day that we got there, all 6 kids and I had to put on all the PPE, the gowns, the masks, the hair things, the gloves. And then they said, once we got in there, you can take your gloves off and touch him if you want to. And we're like, this whole time we haven't been able to be in here, and now we are, and you're telling me we can take off our gloves right when we cross over this threshold? Things like that just did not line up. The policies and things did not line up. I'm not sure what's okay and what's not to say on your podcast.
Oh, you can say anything you want. Anything you want. I hardly edit them, and and if there is, in a way, like I've had a few people go into some real detail about what they see when they go in the room, and I just give a little notice at the beginning of the episode for a trigger for some people who might be triggered. So I know that. I mean, I can't imagine. I just can't imagine the frustration of being at home for as long as you were, and then going in and then them saying you can touch him.
And not only me, but the children too. Mm-hmm. I just, this whole time, and if you read back in our Dave and I's messages, he's like, I need my wife here. I need you pounding on my lungs. I need you telling me it's okay. I need you giving me hope. He needed that. And not only would anyone need that, but he was grieving at the same time and worried he's going to die too. The hospital people, I don't doubt that they did their best. I even said in David's eulogy, how much I understand how those women, and I think some men, lined up for battle, with this stuff. But they were stuck following those policies too. It's like there's nobody to blame for this. I just tell my kids this is all just the consequences of sin. It's just the evil in this world that has caused all of this.
So you were able to message him through Facebook Messenger. I used Facebook Portal to talk to my mom. That's what they got at her facility. So I understand that, did you ever video? Get a chance to video call?
Yeah, I did. And the kids did a little bit. It was very hard to talk to him. He had so many tubes and things in his face. And, and he was very worried about the kids seeing him, and he was crying a lot, which it's hard for me anyway. It's hard to see any man cry, let alone my husband, when I know he's scared he's dying, So, yeah, I'm so thankful for those video chats, the few that we got, and, I wish we could have it again, but I don't even know what I'd say to him, I'm sure you know. I'm sure you know how that feels.
Yes. Yes, I do. So when was he put on the ventilator, and did you have any contact with him, or did he tell you that was happening ahead of time?
Yes. He told me about 5 or 10 minutes before it was happening on December 16th. He messaged me and said they just told me no food, no drink, which I know that means that they're doing this immediately. And so I started, frantically messaging, please ask if we can come down to pray. We'll be there in 20 minutes. I'm saying this in a 40-minute drive. How do I know? But please just let us come down there, let us come pray. Let us come see you. I don't know if he was even able to ask. I don't know if he was even able to read my messages, but he video called me and we just said goodbye. The nurses were right there with tubes in her hand, in his face, and all I could do was take a screenshot of that moment of us talking, and that's the last time I talked to him alive. That's the last time I talked to him at all. Well, except for when he was dead already.
Have you looked back at that screenshot?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I am a big documenter. I take pictures of things that I probably shouldn't. I have photos of us together after he was already gone. And I don't know, it's just who I am, and I just, those moments don't come back. And I don't know, I just needed anything I could of him. My time was running out, and that was the last time I saw him. I didn't see him again. We didn't do an open casket or anything. His mother just couldn't have, So.
I took screen captures of my last video calls with my mom too.
Yeah.
And I have not been able to look at them. I have thousands of photos of her because I documented her slowly fading away from Alzheimer's.
Right. Okay.
And so my therapist suggested that I take photos. So I got into this habit of taking pictures of her every single time I saw her. And so I did that. I was so used to that, and I really wanted that. But now I can't look at those photos of those last few days.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So he was on a ventilator for 10 days.
Yes.
And did the hospital continue to update you except on the weekends? And then I guess another question I have is, did you become really Google proficient at looking things up and learning a lot about what was happening to him?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
At that point, I was done with COVID. I was like, I don't want to hear or see or anything. I mean, no matter how much I tried to understand it, every time I spoke with someone different, it was something else to learn. It wasn't useful. It wasn't useful to know anymore, I have, like nurse friends I would ask, and I posted a lot on Facebook. I was updating every day on Facebook when I heard from the people. I was doing live videos and letting people know because, all our church people and, everyone wanted to know everything. And I'm like, I can't call everybody. So I was just doing it on Facebook. So I had people like trying to help me make sense of things. And I guess I just kind of knew that I just didn't think he was going to make it, to be honest. I had a cautious hope is what I was calling it. A cautious hope that I know God can do this. I know this is not out of God's realm to help him pull through, but I also know that it's not out of God's realm to just let him go and just come to terms with the fact that he just got 36 beautiful years on this earth. And that's just it. That's just it. And, I see his purpose and, I'm so thankful to be a part of that. I'm thankful for what I did get with him. He was such a treasure to have in my life.
It is never enough time.
It's not.
But there's the gratitude for what time we did have.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I've learned so much since he's been gone. I've told my kids several times that, this is sink or swim time without Daddy, without our rock, So, yeah, I'm thankful for the lessons learned, and I'm just choosing to just be thankful in all circumstances.
So what was that Christmas like for you? I mean, you said cautious hope, but you just had to be sitting there in this place of like, what do we do?
Yeah. Well, my birthday is December 24th, and that was the day that I really realized that he was not going to make it. I think that was Saturday. Okay, that was Saturday, so I was not hearing from them. And I just knew he wasn't going to make it, and I was right. He died, 2 days later, obviously. But as far as like the holiday itself, I don't remember. I truly don't remember Christmas Day. We had been holding out celebrating any kind of Christmas at all to see if Daddy would make it. That was like something the kids and I all decided on. And then so Christmas Day came and went, and he was still around. And I think it was December 27th that my best friends were over, and they, put together stockings and got out the gifts that I did have, and people sent us gifts and things like that. So we just got those out and had a little Christmas morning, And I don't really remember much about it, but yeah, that's just kind of how it went. So, yeah.
And was it just something where you had a feeling, like an intuition?
Yeah, I'm almost embarrassed to say, but not really because of how true it is, that I had a feeling that something was coming. Like for the last couple of years, I had a feeling that Dave was like going to pass away early. And my kids have heard me talk about that. I've asked him in front of them, what happens if you die? Like what happens? What do we do? Are you set for that? Things like that. And so when he got sick and when we realized like how bad it really was, I was just like, wow, I really knew this was happening. I knew this was coming. I don't know how to explain that. It's so weird. But yeah, I definitely, I feel like I was prepared. I do feel like I was prepared. I think that's where my cautious hope came from. Was like, I really hope this isn't happening, but I just kind of knew.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, if you think about if you weren't prepared, like if it was just you had hope right up until they called you and said, come down to the hospital.
Right.
And yeah, I understand, like you say that it's it's weird or whatever word you use, but in a way you were ready, more ready, more ready.
Yeah, I think so. And I did know what we had, I did know what happens. He's like, you got to call my work. So I knew what to do, it's amazing the things that he has had prepared, or maybe God had prepared for us to walk through this, without him.
Yeah, it's an important conversation.
Yeah.
For married couples, parents and kids to have,
it
no
really
matter
is.
what the age.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, David was only 36.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not something that you and he or most people your age would think to talk about.
Not at all.
But it is so important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think his brothers passing away before him really made him see, that there are things to make that part of things easier. and to do that, don't be lazy about it. Get it done. And even with David's preparation, it has been incredibly difficult to, just manage his affairs after all of this. The life insurance and the vehicles and the house and FEMA, because this is a national natural disaster or whatever they call it. I don't know. Things like that. I mean, there's just so many things, so many layers, and then the grief on top of it. And the children and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I do want to ask how your kids are doing. One of the other questions I have is, you did have a funeral for him.
We did, yeah.
Okay. And then, yeah, I guess one of the other questions I want to ask before I ask about your children is how you're coping. And the stuff with the hospital, I mean, that's got to be something that sometimes you put in a box and are like, I don't know what to do with all these emotions. But are you angry? Are you still angry? Do you feel like you're moving through it, or just sort of stuck in it?
I think, if I'm being honest, I'm super angry and super hiding it. I'm definitely pushing it down. I'm just not ready to go there, I am so angry, and I've lately been wanting to request his medical records, and I can't even do that. I don't know. I am angry, but I just don't have time to deal with that right now. I know that's not good. That's not healthy. I actually just this week have signed up for therapy. So obviously I know, but I have to function. I have to function right now. Life is moving on. It is not waiting on my grief and my anger. It's not waiting on my feelings. And so I really do have to be intentional with how I approach that. Because I'm not only angry at, like I mentioned, the sin of COVID. I'm not only angry at the hospital and the policies and the junk that goes along with that. I'm angry at David too, because I feel like if he had taken better care of his health, like I told him to, he could have beat this like I did, And I'm comfortable saying that because I bet that if he were here, he would agree with me. He would be so sorry, he did not want this. So I have a lot of feelings to work through for sure.
And so how are your children? The age range from youngest to oldest, and like what's going on with them, and do you see them coping and moving through this in different ways?
Yeah, for sure. My kids are 6, 8, 9, 12, 16, and 17. I have 3 daughters and 3 sons. They're doing well. My littler ones definitely still cry at nighttime. not so much every night anymore, but when that 3 o'clock in the afternoon hits, we're still waiting for Daddy to come home from work. Like he was just the prize of our day. And I made it that way on purpose. He was so worth it to be just adored by his children and me. But yeah, I mean, they're doing okay. They're doing okay. I really get caught up in kind of thinking God made a mistake and took the wrong parent, because I'm like, what? I can't even do this. But obviously I am. So I think God does know. And, I'm so sad that he's missing out just on everything he's missed out on, the birthdays and the loose teeth and the finishing school and, just, I would never want to miss out on that stuff. So.
How are the older children? How are they coping?
They're pretty quiet, to be honest. We do a lot of laughing and a lot of, inside dad jokes and things like that. We talk about him a lot. We do not shy away from talking about him. I post memories on my Instagram and Facebook like every day. I still talk about him every day. I still refer to us as we, Yeah. Yeah, he really was like glue that held us together,
Yeah. Well, and it seems like he still is.
Yeah, he definitely is. Yeah, that's true.
Do you have family and your church group around you helping you as well?
Yeah, I do. My church people are definitely around more than my family. I think with my family it might be kind of a don't really know what to do or say type of thing, and so they don't really come around a lot. And David and I were pretty independent. We didn't really lean on people for a lot of help before, and so I think it's kind of like maybe I don't reach out for help where I should, and they don't know how to help me because I've never reached out for help. It definitely it is nice to have my church people. They've been incredible, and other friends too. Not only church people, other friends as well. I seek a lot of support on Facebook. I'm friends with a lot of women who are, doing their own grieving. My best friend lost her baby just a few months ago, so we're kind of walking this journey together. It's been interesting. Learned a lot. Lots of growing. Lots of growing happens through suffering. So
yeah,
we all know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have married? I guess I've talked to a lot of people who are COVID widows, quite a few at this point, and almost all of them mention friends who are married, who are there for a while and then sort of drift away. Have you experienced that?
No, not really.
That's so good.
Yeah, we didn't really have him. We had just started going to a new church. Gosh, it was this time last year, and so before we started going to church, we didn't have any friends at all. We really were just Dave and I and the kids. We really only did stuff together. And so I guess the reason why I haven't had people do that to me is because we didn't really have friends in the first place. It was really just us. And then, when he died, my church friends really stepped in, but that was the first time they ever really had to. Well, that was the first time we ever really spoke and they ever reached out. It just all kind of happened right when he died. And yeah, so, that was one of the ways in which I referred to earlier that I felt like Dave prepared us, like he had us start going to church over there, and left left me with these people who have supported me in ways that I did not even know I needed, and kind of have only just realized I've needed because they've been here this whole time and I have not been without the support. And I'm just so grateful, you know, to Dave for obeying where the Lord told him to bring us to church. I'm so thankful for his obedience to God.
Yeah, you really still you feel him with you all the time.
I do. I really do. I feel him, you know, in feelings, and I feel him in the smell, you know, of hose water, you know, that metal smell of hose water that takes you back, you know. And I feel him, like, you know, in the fog in the morning and in the sun rays over a field, you know, he's just everywhere to me. His beautiful self, like, he will just never be gone to me, ever. I do hope to be married again one day. I loved being married. But I feel like I have to make sure that my new husband knows that it'll just always be Dave, you know?
Yeah.
It'll always be Dave.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a beautiful lady. I think her name is Nora. She did a TED Talk. Oh gosh, on grief, and her first husband died of brain cancer, and she has since remarried, and she refers to her second husband in some sort of funny way, but she honors her first husband all the time in her Instagram and all these books that she writes. She has a podcast called I'm Terrible, Thanks for Asking.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing, but yeah, she is worth every bit, like the Instagram follows and her podcast and her books and everything. The way she thinks about grief, and like you were talking about, honoring her first husband, and he, you know, the child that she had with him, and taking him and everything that she misses about that whole life with him into this next marriage.
Yes.
And how to balance that, because that's, you know, what you'll have to do. You have 6 kids with David, and
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So I know you said you were sick of COVID. How are you doing with just in general, like what's happening in Kansas now? Are there any restrictions of any kind? Is there anything that you know of going on, or are you just like done?
Well, I don't watch the news. I definitely don't watch the news. I don't watch the news for multiple reasons. There are no restrictions that I know of that I've run into while I'm out and about. My grandma's in the hospital now. I was just at the hospital today and had to wear a mask, which was awful. But other than that, no, I don't really see anything or hear of anything.
How do you feel when people talk about that new normal?
I don't know. I suppose I just kind of ignore it. You know, I spent so much time, I feel like a lot of people spent so much time being angry and just confused about the way people were thinking and feeling about all of this. And at this point, I really have just learned to let people do just what they think they need to do. I mean, you know, I have so much just built up about the whole vaccine issue and everything, and I don't know. I understand both sides of it so well. I don't know. It's hard to even talk about. It's just I don't want to hurt feelings, and I don't want to hurt myself, you know, things like that. It's just it all turned into such a like clown show, I feel like. And I feel like it's just going to start all over again, especially as we hit the winter months. I'm just, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very charged topic.
It is. It really
Absolutely.
is.
And I like you, whatever anybody wants to do personally, their personal choice. I just have to accept and support and love, because all I can do is take care of me,
Right.
and I have to just let other people do what they need to do. And I truly, like, it's not just words. Like, I really mean it. I have plenty of family who have made their choice,
Right.
you know,
Uh-huh.
and I just have to accept that.
Yeah. The people that have, you know, helped me the most in that area, like as far as the vaccine goes, is, you know, like I've had people who are very much like pro-vaccine, like absolutely get this no matter what or whatever. I was not that person. But you know, I've had those people come to me and just say, "I'm so sorry. I know you know, made the choice that you felt was best." And it's true, I did. And I still think that, even though he didn't make it, you know. But those people who really just saw me and just knew that, like, you know, obviously I was doing what I felt best. I didn't want this to happen, you know. And him either, you know, it's not just me, it's him too. He could have gotten the vaccine if he wanted it, you know. But it is hard. It's hard to keep those feelings away after all of the, I feel like, abuse that went on as far as the vaccine goes, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Do you have people well, I guess the first question is, have people who know that David passed away from COVID, have they asked you, like, about his pre-existing conditions, or felt like it was just open ground for them to ask you those kinds of questions?
Yeah.
Okay. And how does that make you feel?
Well, honestly, you know, I feel like I have two choices. I could be offended, or I could be honest and say, yeah, you know, he was overweight. He had sleep apnea. He didn't use a CPAP machine. He didn't eat healthy. He didn't intentionally lose weight when he knew he needed to. I think that's why the COVID hit him as hard as it did. So, you know, I mean, I'm honest with them. I think that, you know, being overweight and stuff really, I don't think people like to say it, but that did not help him out. And, you know, I'm just honest with them, you know. I'm honest about it, especially if it's going to hit us again or whatever comes next. I think our health, our immune systems, they need to be paid attention to.
Yeah, and you're talking about the warnings for this winter, which
Yeah.
I don't watch the news a lot either, and I watch tiny bits of local news, and then I just have to turn it off, and I don't watch YouTube. And
Let me clarify the warnings for winter. That's just me. I haven't heard that anywhere. That's just me.
Oh, okay.
Flu season's coming. I'm just assuming we're all going to be getting sick. That's me.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Let me clarify.
Oh no, that's fine. I'm glad you did, because I was watching, gosh, I can't remember where it was, but there was a warning about how COVID could have a big resurge this winter.
Right.
So, and you know, that's when I have to take the news and I just turn it off and I go do something else, because I'm overloaded. I'm overloaded with the grief of it all.
Yeah, I understand. I really do. I've started walking and running and gardening just to do something with my feet and my hands to get moving, something healthy, you know.
Oh yeah, I do. This podcast helps me in just a myriad of ways,
sure.
But it is where I let COVID into my life, because I feel like it's healing, as opposed to the negativity and the crazy making of some of it.
Yeah, I definitely was recognizing that I was kind of pushing things down. I wasn't reading anything about grief. I wasn't following any grief Instagram accounts, you know, anything like that. I wasn't listening to the grief audiobooks people had sent me. But I kind of realized that probably wasn't good. And that's how I ended up coming across your podcast, was because I was looking for specific things to help me out with this, because I was feeling mighty lonely and knowing that I'm not, you know, which is hard to know you're not alone yet feel alone.
Yeah.
So I've definitely made some friends. So thanks for having a podcast, Jennifer.
Oh, Yeah, you're welcome. I've told the story a few times. It just popped into my head one day that I need to find something to listen to that will help me deal with this grief. And then there really wasn't much out there besides the Facebook support group.
Right.
And so then I just thought, well, I can do this.
Yeah.
And so here I am. But
Right.
yeah. What do you miss the most about David?
Oh my goodness. I just his little things that he would say. I mean, he was so thoughtful and just in the most like random ways. I mean, this is probably a little much, but I'll go ahead and share anyway. Feel free to edit out. He would ask me if my breasts were tender before he picked me up to hug me. Like, like I don't know. It's just so weird, Like that's how random he was. Or if I was wearing a yellow shirt, you look pretty like a mustard sandwich.
Oh.
Like, thank you. Just how do you even respond to that? Those are the things I miss the most about him. His thoughtfulness. Yeah.
When you're married, I think you develop these funny things that only the two of you know.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird just not having him around for those things. Or if I do something silly in my head, I'll think of the thing he might have said to me when I did that, I don't know. He's just so silly. And I mentioned earlier that I'm a documenter. And so through all these years, I've written down little quotes and funny things that he and the kids have said, just random little things, and posted them on Facebook. And so now all of those are coming up in my memories. And so every day I go through my 2 Facebooks and his 1 Facebook and screenshot all the memories and reshare them. And so it's such a lovely thing to see every day, just the little things in our lives that I happen to make note of. And those things mean so much now that he's gone. But yeah.
Have you given any thought to the holidays and maybe what you and your family are going to do to move through those?
Yeah, a little bit. Typically, David and I would just have holiday dinners at home alone with the kids. I am tempted to continue doing that and just, at least for this year, to just kind of make it like a remembering type of thing. But I also am open to new traditions too, so I'm not really sure, honestly. It's so hard to make these decisions without him. He was just the one I looked to for things like this, and yeah, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure.
One of the last questions that I ask everybody is, what do you say to people who tell you that COVID isn't real?
I would definitely admit that I thought that too. I made plenty of my own COVID jokes, and I've been humbled. We'll just say that. Yeah, there are definitely some Facebook memories I do not share because I just can't believe myself. Yeah, how could I be so prideful, to think that this would never happen to me? How dare I? I lost my number one, That's a big part of my therapy, is talking about that, just not taking things seriously as I should have, until it was too late, or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that's not true, but that's right now where my head's at with it. I know I didn't cause his death, but man, it's hard not to think that after I was so flippant about it before. Yeah. So flippant.
Yeah. I remember early, it was probably like April or May, there was some very funny videos and people making fun of, Corona, because at first it was the beer and coronavirus. And I had this attitude that even though what I was seeing in Kirkland, Washington with the nursing home there, I was like, that'll never happen to me.
Right.
That'll never happen to my mom. Yeah. Yeah, we my family gathered around those videos and that tiger show that was on Netflix and a bunch of other things, and we did all the community things and laugh thinking it's not going to be that bad.
Right. Yeah. That's such a weird place to be in, to think back on those, jokes and comments and to hear other people still do that. And they're good people. They don't know what they're saying. They don't know what they're saying.
Yeah. And in a way it's good that, well, not good, but they're making jokes because they haven't experienced.
Right. Exactly. Right. And I try to keep that in mind too. Yeah. The same kind of thing with when I hear married couples fighting, or hearing a woman badmouth her husband, or the other way around. I'm just like, I wasn't okay with that before. Like that wasn't cool before, but now it's like, you guys don't realize how good you have it just being together. Man.
Yeah, I have learned to appreciate my husband a lot more through doing this podcast, which I don't even know if I don't know if he's listened to a single episode.
Right.
He might never have.
Sure.
But hearing stories like yours and others, I realized some of the little nitpicky things that I was like, oh my gosh, he's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
I can just put aside now and be like, he's here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I do the same thing with moms. There's people who complain about their mom or don't see their mom, don't speak to their mom, haven't talked to their mom in years because she's obnoxious.
Right.
And I was like, oh, someday you're going to miss your mom so much.
Right. Yeah. Funny how things work out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, funny, yeah. We could find a better word for that.
Well, I'm glad we have the ability to laugh a little bit.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Casey, for talking to me today about David.
Yeah, you're welcome, Jennifer. Sure, it's my pleasure. I'm happy to talk about him.
And that's the show, everyone. If you've lost a loved one to COVID and would like to share your story on the show, please send me an email. My email address is forthosewelostpodcast@gmail.com. This show won't ever have a members area or episodes that you have to pay to listen to, but there are expenses to hosting a podcast, and if you'd like to help, you can support this show at buymeacoffee.com/forthosewelost. The link is in the show notes below. And if you're still listening, and thank you so much if you are, if you like this episode, please share it with your friends, share it on your social media, and once you've done that, please rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts, because that's where most of our new listeners come from. Ratings and reviews are the main way this podcast finds new listeners. So please, share the show. Until next time.